Hospitals are meant to heal, but sometimes they hide things no medicine can fix. Clapperboard, cut to flickering hallway light, echo of footsteps. In 1983, a nurse and her patient walked into King Edward Hospital in Perth, Australia, and were never seen again. No blood trail, no witnesses, only a room sealed shut and a tape labeled 4B. Tonight, we dig into one of the most disturbing true crime cases you've probably never heard of. The vanished nurse and patient. This isn't just another mystery. This is the story the hospital tried to erase. Stretches into the darkness, fluorescent lights flickering above. The camera pans slowly down the hall, empty, sterile, silent, except for the distant echo of a beeping heart monitor. It was June 12, 1983, a cold Sunday night in Perth, Australia. Inside King Edward Memorial Hospital, most patients slept soundly, nurses rotated shifts, and security guards dozed behind glass monitors. Nothing about that night seemed unusual until 5:15 a.m., when two people, a nurse and her patient, were discovered missing. Their names were Helen McCarthy, a 28-year-old night shift nurse, and Angela Rowan, a 32-year-old mother recovering from childbirth. Both disappeared without warning, without struggle, and without any trace of where they went. Their belongings remained exactly as they had left them, but they were gone. A cut to a news broadcast from the 1980s, grainy footage of reporters outside the hospital gates. Police are baffled tonight as investigators search for two women who vanished from Perth's King Edward Memorial Hospital. Over the next 40 years, rumors, secrets, and conspiracy theories would surround this case. Was it an inside job, a cover-up, or something darker, buried beneath the hospital's spotless walls? This is not just the story of a disappearance. It's the story of silence and how it echoes through time. Welcome to The Vanished Nurse and Patient, the 1983 mystery of King Edward Hospital. The camera slowly pans across a black-and-white photo of King Edward Memorial Hospital, Perth, 1983, a massive sandstone structure, its windows glowing under the streetlights. King Edward Memorial Hospital wasn't just any hospital. Built in the early 1900s, it stood as a symbol of medical pride, a place where new life began, where thousands of babies had taken their first breath. But within those same walls, something else lingered. Whispers of missing files, a wing that was closed without explanation, and stories that hospital staff were warned never to repeat. By the early 1980s, King Edward had seen decades of births, deaths, and quiet tragedies. The maternity wards were always full, and night shifts were notoriously long. The nurses called the third floor the graveyard ward, not because anyone had died there recently, but because of how silent it always was, even when it shouldn't be. Old hospital equipment, dimly lit hallways, nurses in white uniforms moving like ghosts in the night. Among the staff was Helen McCarthy, 28 years old, hardworking, polite, and deeply respected. She'd been at the hospital for 5 years, known for her calm under pressure. Patients trusted her. Colleagues adored her. But her friends say that in the weeks leading up to her disappearance, something had changed. Helen had become distant. She stopped joining her co-workers for tea breaks. She told one friend that she'd been hearing things at night and that someone was watching the nursery wing after midnight. Most brushed it off: fatigue, stress, maybe too much caffeine. But one nurse remembered something else. Helen had started taking notes, writing names, times, and room numbers in a small brown notebook she always kept in her pocket. A hand places a small notebook on a bedside table. The page turns, lists of dates, scribbles, and a line underlined twice. Room 314. Do not go alone. Then there was Angela Rowan, the patient. A 32-year-old mother admitted for postnatal care after a difficult delivery. She was meant to be discharged the very next morning. Angela wasn't from Perth. She was from Albany, a small coastal town 4 hours away. Her husband had gone home early, planning to return the next day to take her home. But by dawn, she and Nurse McCarthy were gone. No security cameras, no witnesses, and when investigators arrived, there was no sign of forced entry, no blood, no struggle. The beds were made, The lights off. Only a single window left slightly open, leading into the cold night air. If they left on their own, why? If someone took them, how? To understand that, we have to go back to what was really happening inside King Edward in 1983. A long, dim corridor. The fluorescent lights hum faintly. A cleaner's cot sits abandoned. The camera pans to a locked door marked Ward C, closed for renovation. 2 days after the nurse and patient vanished, police began combing through every corner of King Edward Hospital. Most of the building was routine, busy wards, paperwork, nurses too tired to speak. But one section stood out. Ward C, sealed since 1979. No entry, no lights, no records. Officially, it had been closed for asbestos removal. But the staff knew better. Rumor said that something happened there years earlier, something that forced the hospital to lock it forever. A former nurse, voice altered, says, "You could still hear the buzz of machines behind that door at night. But the power was off. I used to tell new nurses, don't walk past there after midnight." Helen didn't listen. Investigators forced open the door. Inside was a forgotten ward, beds draped in plastic, old four-poles rusted, a calendar on the wall frozen on May 1979. Dust thick as snow. But there was something else, footprints. Small, fresh footprints leading from the door to the far end of the room. The prints stop at a wall, where a metal cabinet had been screwed shut. Inside it, detectives found a stack of old patient charts. Many pages were blank, but each folder had the same note scribbled on the cover. Reassigned to night list. The night list wasn't in any medical archive. No nurse or doctor would admit knowing what it meant. But one chart caught the lead investigator's attention. It listed the same patient name that had gone missing just days ago, Angela Rowan. How could her name appear in a file from 4 years before she was even admitted? A typed note attached to the folder reads, "Transferred without consent. Do not notify family." That's when police realized this wasn't just a disappearance. Someone had been falsifying hospital records for years. In Ward C, the sealed wing might not have been abandoned after all. Whatever Helen McCarthy found in those old files might be what got her killed. It's 2:43 a.m. at King Edward Hospital. A janitor on the night shift swears he hears a faint voice coming from the basement. He follows the sound, every step echoing through narrow stairs that smell of bleach and rust. He turns the corner. On the floor lies an old recorder, still spinning. The tape label reads, Rowan, 83, OBS. Detectives collected the recorder, convinced it was just another misplaced hospital relic. But when forensic audio analysts played the tape, they froze. You hear breathing, then footsteps, then a whisper, a woman's voice, shaky, crying. They said I'd be fine, but the light won't stop. The light, static. A man's voice interrupts. You signed the consent form, Angela. It's too late now. The voice belonged to Dr. Leonard Fraser, the hospital's chief psychiatrist from 1978 to 1983. The same year he disappeared. Fraser's record was spotless. But behind his office wall, maintenance staff uncovered a service hatch, one that led directly to the old Ward C subbasement. There was no reason for it to exist, no plans, no blueprint mention. Yet it connected to a sealed laboratory. Inside were rows of examination tables and a lead-line door labeled EMP study room. Every item was tagged with hospital inventory codes that didn't match any department. Among the debris, detectives found dozens of film canisters, labeled with initials, not patient names. Most were corroded, but one was salvageable. A woman sits restrained in a chair under fluorescent light. A doctor adjusts a dial on an electrical panel. A high-frequency tone pulses. Her eyes roll back. Then, she starts laughing uncontrollably, then screaming. Experts couldn't identify what procedure was being performed. But there was one thing that stood out, the patient's face. It was unmistakably Angela Rowan. But the timestamp on the footage said April 1979, 4 years before she was admitted. 4 years before she was even a registered patient. Either the video was fake, or Angela Rowan had been here before. Much before. When detectives dug deeper, they uncovered another report, This one from an intern doctor who had filed a complaint in 1980 against Fraser. The complaint described unauthorized nighttime sessions involving patients listed as withdrawn from study. The intern was fired 2 days later. His name was Daniel Hurst. Hurst vanished 6 months later. His car was found near the Swan River, empty. The tape had reopened something the hospital had buried for decades. And the next discovery, what they found behind that sealed steel door, would change the investigation from a disappearance to a cover-up. It's raining outside King Edward Hospital. Police vans circle the re-entrance. Inside, crime scene tape snakes across the sealed Ward C corridor. Detectives pry open the lead-line door marked EMP study room. Inside is chaos, broken tables, thick cables running into the walls, and a rusted isolation chair with leather restraints still buckled. It wasn't a lab. It was an experiment chamber, but no one knew what they were testing for. On it, patient codes, time intervals, and one repeated phrase. Cognitive echo retention. The deeper investigators dug, the stranger it became. In a hidden cabinet, forensics discovered blood vials, each tagged with initials that matched missing patient names from 1979 through 1983. And in the far corner of the room, they found a crate labeled Property of Commonwealth Defense Project. A military project, inside a maternity hospital. Defense funds new neural interface study, Perth. Ethical concerns over brainwave mapping denied by officials. The file suggested that Dr. Leonard Fraser was leading a government-funded trial, testing whether electromagnetic pulses could reset neurological trauma. But these weren't volunteers. They were psychiatric patients and newborn mothers who'd signed routine hospital forms without realizing the fine print. They told us it was brain therapy, the man says, voice blurred. But every subject ended up wise, paranoid, trembling, unable to recognize their own family. Then the records just vanished. Police confirmed that at least 9 patients listed as part of Study 4B were officially transferred, but no destination hospital ever received them. Their names later appeared on the night list from Chapter 3. Detectives realized something chilling. Every name from that list matched a woman who had recently given birth at King Edward Hospital. And all had one attending nurse in common, Helen McCarthy. McCarthy wasn't random. She was a whistleblower. Records show she'd been collecting evidence, quietly photocopying patient forms and treatment sheets. Her final log entry read, basement experiments ongoing. No consent. Must go to police. That log was dated April 17, 1983. The next morning, both Helen McCarthy and Angela Rowan were gone. By now, detectives knew what happened wasn't an accident. It was an operation, one that reached beyond hospital administration. And somewhere inside that basement, someone had recorded everything. 2 names, 2 lives, and 4 decades later, still no justice. Maybe the truth was buried under hospital floors. Or maybe it's still whispering through those walls. If this story left you questioning what really happened that night, make sure you hit subscribe, leave a like, and stay with us as we uncover the next truth they tried to hide. Dark truths, real crimes, no sleep,